Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first lecture of our introduction to communication. Um, Honestly, let's just get into it. So today we're going to go over our chapter 1 in our book, Intro to Communication. So first off, I want you to reflect on some of these questions. I want you to first think about, what do you know about communication? I already asked you this in your introduction, so that's going to be an easy one. Next, what are the ways that we communicate? What are some examples of that? Third, when is it important to have good communication skills? And lastly, how do you view yourself as a communicator? For me, for example, I am an extrovert. I'm bubbly. I use a lot of movements and gestures. And I'm very informal when it comes to communication. So that's how I view myself as a communicator. Okay, now that we have reflected, let's get into what it is. What is communication? And communication is a process of using messages to generate a shared meaning. That is your book definition. I don't know if this is a definition, but how I view communication is it is the root of all problems as well. It solves all problems as well, which that's mine. It's the root of all problems and the solution of all problems. But communication, it's so fluid and it's so big that there's no right way to communicate. It just depends on the context as a whole. And so our goals of communication is to create meaning, build relationships, and maintain understanding. And that is what we will be learning throughout this semester. So now let's get into the components of communication. Okay, I want you to have your imaginary hat on, and I want you to imagine yourself, you have your scientist lab coat, we have a little microscope, and we're about to put communication under that. And we're dividing it into these small little like atoms and components of what it is. That's what we're about to do. It's gonna feel a little like silly, but it's like we are literally just breaking down a conversation and the elements of that. So first, let's start with the most important aspect is the people. So we have the sender and we have the receiver. So sender right now is me, and then y'all are the receivers. Same thing could be speaker, listeners. So now that we have the people, let's go on to our next, encoding and decoding. So as the sender, this is basically the processing and then making sense of. So right now, I'm trying to teach you about the components of communication. So I'm trying to encode, make sense of my thoughts, to create a message, to send to y'all, and as the receivers, as you're taking it in, you're decoding. You're like, okay, what is she saying? And you're trying to make sense of the message I am telling you. And again, not again, but we have then the message. The message is literally the words I'm speaking out loud to you right now. Then we have the channel. The channel is the basically the transportation method of the message. So right now, this channel is me, my voice. I'm sending y'all the message through speaking, like through my voice. Um, the message is also through a video, so you can see me as well. You could see my nonverbals. Um, but this could be the channel could be over the phone, the channel could be over FaceTime, the channel could be social media, the channel could be email, the channel there's so many different things. The channel could be over text. It's just the method that the message is being sent through. So now that we have the people, we have the making sense of the messages, creating the message, making sense of it, the message itself, the channel. Now let's get to feedback. Feedback is what you as the audience, the listeners, that's what you do back to me. So this could be in a face-to-face teaching like classroom. Your feedback may be nodding your heads. Your feedback may be a thumbs up, or literally saying, like, yes, this makes sense. Or your feedback could be like blank faces staring at me, or literally, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Therefore, I need to go back. Okay, what can I change to make this message make more sense? Um, Feedback in this scenario, right? I don't have a live audience. You're just watching this on your own time. This could be you emailing me and being like, hey, like, I needed help on X, Y, and Z. I don't know why you would do this. Apologize for my dog. I don't know why you do this. You can 100% and make me feel good, but hold on. I don't know why you would do this, and you totally can, but it could also look like you emailing me, um, like, great lecture, I understood everything, thank you so much. That's feedback. So now that we know what feedback looks like verbally, non-verbally, then we have lastly noise. So noise is basically every like distraction that there can be. Like a second ago, my dog was whining, and that was very distracting for me. So I had to pause the video. Noise that affects me as the sender creating my message. If you hear my dog barking or whining, then that can affect your decoding of the message, right? Distract you from what I'm saying, but because you're paying attention to the dog. This could be you're at a coffee shop and someone beside you is having a very intense conversation. And so you're like kind of watching and listening to them as you're listening to me. This could be that it's super cold in the room. And so you're literally like thinking about, oh my gosh, I need a jacket. My toes are super cold. I need more socks on. Like anything, right, in your environment that you're feeling, that's noise. That's what affects the the message itself, right? So it can affect me, the person, the sender trying to make sense of my thoughts and make a message. It can affect how we hear the message, right? So if my dog barks and then the mic can't really catch what I'm saying, that affects the message. And then decoding, right? You're distracted by something, you're cold, you paying attention to what the message is and making sense of that. So noise, just all the distractions that there is. So that's just kind of a quick, easy components of communication, what that looks like when we're literally talking, communicating to people in person, online, in so many different ways. So now let's move on to our communication principles. So our first communication principle is that communication begins with the self. So this is kind of touching back to the questions I asked that I wanted you to reflect, right? How do you view yourself as a communicator? So with this, right, as a communicator, you create your own style of communication, your messages, the channels you use, you develop like your own like unique style. And that's what people want. Like, I'm not here to teach you how to be this, like, here are all the things you need to do, and this is how you are a good communicator. I'm giving you skills, and I want you to use that alongside with your unique method of communicating, right? If you are um, very introverted, you don't talk a lot, how can you develop the skills so then your communication, we take away the miscommunication part, but you are still who you are, you know? I'm not asking you to change who you are to be a better communicator. I'm just asking you to apply skills to make your communication style better. Next is communication involves others. This feels like a duh, but I want you to think about it more of our sense of self and who we are is created through the communication with others. It's this idea of, if you're growing up and everyone's telling you you're a really good dancer, then we might continue to hone and practice those skills and like become a dancer, do it in high school and college and maybe even like professionally. Um, we start creating thoughts and values and morals and ethics through our communications with others, right? Whether they're telling us how we should feel or feeling like their way of thinking is wrong, through this communication, we have an idea of like what what is right or wrong? What do we find to be morally correct? What ethically correct? What our values are, what we like and don't like. That's created through our communication with others. So, as much as, some people might be like, I don't like other people, like, I'm just going to keep to myself. The building of who you are is because of your communication with others, right? Others help us build meaning through our communication with each other. And I think that's so amazing and strong and beautiful. But, anyways, now we're on number 3, which is communication has both content and relational dimension. So content is just like the message itself. And then the relational dimension is establishing the relationship between the communicators. So, for example, like your coworker says, hey, one of us needs to put the items on the table away, right? No one is in charge of the other. You're just like peer coworkers. You're probably like both like, so is it gonna be you or is it gonna be me? Like, there's no authority in that. It's just they're kind of saying, we need to get this done or we're gonna get in trouble. Versus your manager saying, hey, you need to put these items on the table away, right? So the content is similar, but the context, the relational dimension is different, right? Even if your peer was like, hey, you need to put the items on the table away. You would literally look at them like, okay. Like, under whose authority? Like, I would have done it, but now that you're telling me, why don't you do it? But if your manager does, the relational dimension is different, right? Then you're like, okay, like, I need to be doing this. So the content can be the same, but the dimension of the relationship changes what that meaning is. Fourth is communication involves choices. So as a speaker, you can choose exactly how your message is presented from the where, the how, the who, the when, etc. So for example, right? If I were to be like, hi guys, like I'm your instructor, welcome to speech 1311 versus hey guys, welcome. I'm your instructor. Welcome to speech 1311. Same message, very different choices that I made, right? Everything you have has a choice of how you deliver it. And I think that is so, so important. From the verbals, the tone, the pitch, articulation, and the nonverbals, the eye contact, the lack of gestures, everything, right? That affects our communication. Next is communication quantity does not mean quality. So essentially, and I struggle with this, right? More communication does not necessarily mean understanding, right? The more you talk, the more you explain yourself, doesn't necessarily mean there is a better understanding because of it. Or they're like, oh, yeah, 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 I get what you mean, right? You can talk all day long and not say anything. I'm sure there's people in your life that you've experienced this with that you're like, Like, please, please. Um, yeah. And I think about like reality shows where specifically like where there's some type of like love interest, relationship, and like they have an argument, and all you could think about in your head is like, bro, like stop talking. You are not helping yourself here. That's exactly what we're talking about. Quantity does not mean quality. Number six is that communication is pervasive. So basically what this means is that it's just constant. It's always like happening. You can't help it. You're either talking, thinking to yourself, observing other nonverbals. Even if you're like, oh, if I'm just sitting here not talking, I'm not communicating anything. Lie. That is not true. Even just sitting there doing nothing, you are communicating something. Your nonverbals tell something. Your body movements, your tone, your eye contact, it that says everything. Even if, right? How many people have, I'm sure people here or observed others where there's a girly who's just like, they're like, that girl is probably a BITCH, right? RBF, girls rise up. Um, Yeah, like, but at the same time, most of the time, you're just existing. You're not mad about anything. You might be the nicest person in the world, but your face is communicating something different. Whether it's true or not, you're communicating something. Communication, it's constant, it's always happening. And lastly, we have communication cannot be reversed. This is so, so important, right? I think about, and I'm sure many of us have, in a fight, in the heat of the moment, you say something, and it really is like you regret it immediately after. Or when you're happy, you're like, I did not mean that. But the thing is, like, it's like a toothpaste tube. Once you squeeze out all the toothpaste, you can't put it back in, right? And so that is why being aware of what you're saying, thinking about what you say before you say it. Is this a heat of the moment reaction or is this actually how I feel? Super important because you can't take it away. People are always going to be thinking about it. So those are our 7 communication principles. So let's get into the context of communication. Water break. So we have a bunch of different types of context. Because this is an introduction to communication class, we're going to hit on everything, right? The world is our oyster. There's so many different avenues. We're going to touch on all of them. So first we have interpersonal, and here's like a good little like graph that shows the difference between them, what it means, opportunities, etc. But first is intrapersonal. This is literally you and you alone. This is you and your thoughts. Intrapersonal, think intra, inside, one person. Then we get to interpersonal, which this is two people speaking, feedback, communicating back and forth. So just two people. Then we have a small group communication. So this is like 3 to 10-ish. So like honestly, small group, maybe even like 3 to 5. That's kind of my brain and what I'd be thinking in there. 3 to 5, 3 to 8, but basically more than 2. That's going to be our small group communication. And we are literally going to be doing a small group project. So you'll be practicing some of that going on. Then we have public speaking, which this is usually more than 10. I feel like this is like a 9 plus going on, but this is, right, a small group, it's probably less like, it could be like a business meeting where like you're up front and you're talking, but there's more feedback coming in and out, right? You can interact more. Where public speaking, this is going to be more like I'm talking at you, similar to honestly like the style that we have going on right now. I'm talking at you of the information. And then after you've listened to it, understood, whatever, then you email me afterwards, and then we can talk about it. Then we have mass communication. So that's think TikTok, and I say think TikTok in the sense of like thousands of people, right? This could be like when, um, I guess that wouldn't count, but yeah, mass communication, a lot of people at once. Then we have online communication. So this is like big, big, big. Think TikTok, um, think Facebook, think, right? There's so many different ones. 2 to millions, right? So mass communication is kind of more on the scale of like the numbers. Like a lot of people, thousands are seeing me. So, right, that's an up from public speaking. Online communication, don't think of it as necessarily like then a leg up. Think of like online communication, it says, right? 2 to millions. Online communication is text. Online communication is um like social media, like posting something on Instagram, right? It's just the platform, the channel is different. But this could be 2, 3, 5, 8, 10 million, right? So that is the difference between each of these. And throughout our class, we're going to be hitting on these, right? You're going to literally have a group project. You're going to have a public speaking assignment that you'll be doing a speech and sending it to me. We'll be talking a lot about like interpersonal things, and the mass communication, online communication kind of come with our discussion post and looking for those artifacts and analyzing pop culture. So there. And to wrap up, I'm not looking for you to like memorize all of this and be an expert in every like facet of communication. I just need you to be competent and ethical in your communication and to start thinking critically and observing communication around you. And that is my goal, and that's where I want you to be today, at least. So, if you have any questions, email me sophia.f.godfrey@lonestar.edu. I will answer you pretty fast. So, feel free to ask any questions, any clarifications, and I'll be right on that. So, now that you're done with this, move on to your next assignment, and I will talk to y'all soon. Bye.